10 years ago, I hated everything I did a lot more. I struggled at the midpoint of every project. I couldn't manage to get through a project, or it'd be every 3 projects I'd hit a major roadblock and be like, I'm so screwed. Like, I hate this. I don't know how to use color. I don't know how to, like, whatever it would be.
You are solving a problem and you're really working to help people understand the real value that product or service brings to them.
People want to see you. People want to see people. Like, often people are like, I want to make reels, but like, how do I, like, you're like talking to the camera. I'm like, start by not talking to the camera.
So basically, you're saying go out, touch grass.
If you're someone that's driven, you're just going to continue to be uncomfortable no matter what. So it's kind of important just to like probably learn to thrive under those conditions if you can, and just like be excited by them.
Hi, and welcome back to Able Heads, the podcast where we chat creativity, business, and everything in between. My name is Anika, I'm your host, and I'm really excited to dive into the details with Kirk Wallace of Bone House today. I'm an engineer turned designer and podcast host, and I really love chatting with creatives about their career journey, and that's one of the things that we're discussing today. The transition from being a computer science engineer and now being a character designer and running a commercial independent studio out of Maine. Kirk is a perfect example of this transition and what it brings along with it. The mindset shifts, the self discipline, and the life choices and the decisions that you make during that transition. Let's get into the deep end with Kirk in this one of 6 episode special at Able Heads.
I'm sure you've met other people too, but like the computer science to graphic design, and then maybe I took it a little bit further into animation and illustration, but like I certainly think that like transition is maybe a natural one. And I say that only just because so many people have told me that they have a similar story. But for me, it was really just about toward the last year of my degree from undergrad was to create like a website, but they were really trying to get us to focus on like database design and all that sort of stuff. And like I was spending all of my time on like the HTML and the CSS of it and just really geeking out on the visuals. And I had no idea why really yet. And I didn't know that you could be a graphic designer. As like, I just didn't know. We were like 5 years old when they're teaching you that like what you're going to choose for college. It's like you're so young, and I had no idea. So I just found myself really fascinated with that. And then I was like, oh, I'm like really interested in fonts, and I'm really interested in like typefaces and like logos. I'm like, oh, I can make icons for my little website. And the professor is obviously not interested in these types of things, but I'm like lighting up when I'm doing these things, and like my database design aspect of it is completely falling off. And it really was like almost it really kind of happened like in senior year of college into like that summer and stuff. I just started getting books and started reading everything I could about graphic design, and um, it just kept kind of spiraling. So it's fun because it truly was born out of passion. It like I had no idea of the rules or anything like that. I really liked making things look nice, and I liked organizing them. And I think I play 2 different roles in my work of like the more chaotic and like energizing, exciting stuff. But so much of it also is like what people don't I don't think they realize about me is like I really love organizing things. Like when I was like in the store as like a little baby with my mom, I would like take all the cereal boxes and like line them up so that they like meet the edge really well, or like color coordinate them, or even today, like before this call, I'm like setting up the shot of the thing and just like cleaning and vacuuming. I just really like bringing order to the hectic kind of world around me. And so I think that's very much like that's like the computer science, I think, pragmatic approach to graphic design. And then the other side is just like I like music and cartoons and movies and stuff. And so I like the visual aspect of it, I think.
That also holds true for me because I'm the same. And it's so weird to hear that from someone else because it's almost seems like you're describing me. And I'm like, yeah, this needs to be perfect in order for it to function how it's supposed to. And I think that's what design is too, because at the end of the day, you are solving a problem and you're really working to help people understand the real value that product or service brings to them. And then if not everything is in order, which is a pragmatic analytical side of things, which tech kind of taught us, and it's kind of hardwired into my brain at this point where yes, I'm a designer, but I bring that technical expertise with the design, which gives me a different perspective of how you bring those things to the table. For people and the audience who don't know who you are, let's start with what kind of services you provide. How do you work with collaborate with people, not just with clients but also with your community?
It feels a little bit, I'm really feeling pulled in a lot of directions, probably the last 2 years. So, for context, I've been doing this for 12, 13 years, 10 years fully independently. And the path was pretty linear, but it was always full of distraction. I think the last year or two, it's really been distracted by, like you said, community building and like content creation. And then still maintaining my business practice of like being a for hire designer and illustrator and animator. And so I'm kind of stuck between worlds a little bit lately. But I am like starting to really enjoy, and I'm finding that they're actually like kind of collaborating with each other. Like a client will see my Skillshare class or a YouTube video that I put out, and they might not necessarily be hiring me because of like the content of what that video holds, but the energy that it holds. I literally this last probably last 2 months or so, I've had like I think 3 clients reach out to me. They were really interested in like my whole picture. They were like, not only do we want your style, but like we want your brain, but also we want like your heart. Like we really like the way you approach these things and the passion that goes behind it. And those types of things are, I think, things that can only be found through like really fully sharing yourself online, I suppose. And so, yeah, I'm constantly kind of at odds with all these different things and like battling all these different interests and stuff. And I think they play together really well. I think something you were saying of like the fusion of these things, like the pragmatic and the creative. And I think about like with cuisine and food of like, to make food more interesting, you fuse it with something that you would never think to fuse it with. And not to say that like computer science and art are like worlds apart, but I do think it makes for a more interesting thing. Rather than, I always talk about like vanilla ice cream. It's like vanilla ice cream with vanilla toppings and vanilla sprinkles is kind of boring. But if you can like bring in like all these different um, practices or interests into it, I think your work becomes more interesting. And I think interesting is probably one of the most important facets of work from a creator. Like you want to be interesting.
And I think that applies to all of the aspects of creating too, like whether it's creating YouTube videos or whether it's creating a skill check class, because not only should it meet the end goal of being or serving one purpose for your audience, like a Skillshare class, for instance, I want to learn XYZ off of Coursera or Skillshare, but also for it to be fun and exciting and that energy and passion that that value match that you have with the creator or the teacher. I think that's really important too. And when I say it goes to all levels, I think that it's also like stickers and stuff, because you want to design a sticker or merch that people actually want to wear and show off, and not something that's only you like designing.
The graphic design, I mean, I'm even fragmenting graphic design versus illustration, which maybe if we zoomed out, it would be more like the computer science and the designer. But either way, it's like, yeah, I want to like I don't want to make a painting for a sticker, right? I want to design a sticker for the canvas of a sticker. I often say about like tattoos, right? It's like just because something makes a really beautiful painting doesn't mean it's going to be a good tattoo because the canvas is different. And so I love working under constraints of like if we're doing embroidery, it should be a limited amount of colors, or like how do we want it to feel on the paper. And like again, like I think a lot of designers will relate to this, but I do think that I do find that there is a divide between I use this metaphor or simile, I don't know, often around like people that are so good at drawing dragons. Like they draw dragons better than anybody in the world, but at the same time they don't know how to like make those dragons like they put dragons on everything, on a mouse pad, on a bow tie, on a t-shirt, on a thing. And it's like, yeah, the dragon's great, but it's not really designed for the canvas. And I think for me, I'd rather be like not as good at drawing, but better at like the whole picture to make a better package, I suppose. I don't know. I'm really excited about that. That like really entices me. And I think that's a lot of why like I could never be like a full-time artist, because I really love like a prompt, and I really like it if it is serving a purpose and has a mission, goal oriented, driven sort of stuff. More and more lately, I want like a little bit less of those constraints, but I don't think I ever want to be totally free of those constraints, because it feels like it's purposeless if it doesn't have like a goal in mind, I guess.
As you say, constraints, it kind of reminds me of what constraints we put for ourselves as independent creators as well. So, did you notice that during that transition period from being an engineer and designing websites, you put some constraints just to help you transition and lean into more of your creative side of things?
For me, for my brain type and the way that I work, it's impossible without. Like it's extremely daunting. And again, I hear this often, so I sometimes feel like a broken record. But yeah, it's like constraints breed all the creativity, and then like it's also like it gives you more of a mission where you're like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. Like I can do this, and frankly, like I think even lately, I'm realizing some of the I had a really healthy upbringing from my parents, and I'm so grateful for it. They gave me so much freedom that I think mostly was amazing. Mostly it helped me. But at the same time, it really was like, what do you want to do? What do you like? Anything you want to do? Like whatever you want, whatever you want, whatever you want. And I want to state that like this is a major privilege of mine, but even like the most privileged things can kind of come back around and become like a little bit of a problem. And I think we can laugh at it for me, of course, but um, I still get pulled around of like, well, maybe I want to do because I feel so empowered to be able to do anything I want. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I could figure out how to become a XYZ if I really put like drove myself toward it. Because I've already done the miracle. Like I've already made illustrate like the fact that I'm able to do this is genuinely like a pinch me moment very often for me. So I'm like, why stop there? Like I'll just keep doing more shit that I have no business doing because I did this one thing. Um, and so like I have to put constraints around it of like, okay, I'm like this type of person. I don't want to move to another, like I have to put constraints around it. Otherwise I'll be like, I'll just walk from here to California designing at the same time and also skateboarding and also doing all this stuff. And like I don't want to like neuter my desire for like to do like to keep pushing and thriving. But at the same time, I get really crippled if I start thinking about like, well, what if I started doing more background art, for instance, or 3D or an entirely different medium altogether. So constraints are like I think the only way that I can get through it because again, it's like we all need structure, I think, in some capacity. And I think that's part of a long-winded way of what I'm trying to say is like I'm learning that in my older age or in my current age, structure is probably something that I either could have benefited from before or I'm certainly benefiting from now. And I'm very uncomfortable and unfamiliar by structure because growing up, it was always like, yeah, whatever you feel like doing, just go ahead and try it.
When you were talking about that, I was thinking about my childhood, and I felt that I got the same kind of support from my family as well, which
Okay.
is also why I did the transition and I could transition,
Mm,
because I feel like that and having the support system that actually believes in the things that you believe in kind of also helps with that, because a lot of people, especially in a South Asian household, for instance, which
right.
is where I belong, I think that there's so much pressure around that upbringing style or the culture where you're born in an Asian household and told that you can be an engineer or a doctor, and then you go be an engineer and you think that actually I don't want to do this. So I think just having that privilege and that support is really important. But to that point, I think and this kind of was going on in my brain is, how did you figure that kind of internally or externally when you were transitioning, that you can be creative?
It was so free form and it blended so gradually between like, I talk about like the snowball effect of like, website turned to icons and like but even at the same time I was like I was really into like forums on the internet in like the early 2000s and like creating like avatars and signatures so like and then blending it with video games and skateboarding and music it's like it's always been a part but at the same time I want to make it clear that like it's never been like I never like was drawing all my life like I'm not like I feel like a lot of people with their stories say like well I was a little kid and I was like drawing a lot I wasn't like getting lost in my imagination very often which I suppose is just like kind of worth stating. But yeah, the freedom of like creativity and drawing and stuff like that, I think honestly came secondary. Like I actually probably would argue I've been more creative the last couple of years than the first 10. Like the first 10, it was like less about expressing myself. There's almost no expression in my work. I'm making bold statements, but I'm comfortable with it of like, there was not a lot of expression or artistry in my work for a long time. And this can definitely boot spur into a longer conversation, but I made like a conscious effort because I felt like so much of my first 20 years of my life was so packed with art in politics and activism and music and like all of these things I was really passionate about. Like being brought up in like the kind of alt music scene and stuff like that, being like politically activated and all of that. Then when I started doing art for a career, like design, it like really went away, and I was just like creating visuals, and I thought that by creating visuals I was creating art and it was good enough, and I was just like counting my blessings. I'm like, I can't believe I get to like choose blue instead of green, and like that's a job. And so I thought like my artistry ended there until like a couple of years ago I started really like getting reindulged in like the stuff that I was really passionate about when I was younger. And then I was like, oh shit, what if I fused the two and actually started putting emotion into my work? And I feel like my work has just really taken off for me. I don't know that anyone else would see the shift, and maybe they would because it's usually not invisible. But for me, like, yeah, having to like put the passion in. So I guess my point is like it was a gradual thing because honestly, at the beginning, I don't even think I was being very artistic about the way I was doing art. And now I think I am.
Do you think you're still finding your style then, or your style is constantly evolving? And if it is evolving, and this is like a three faceted question now, but if the first is, do you think you're still finding your style? Second, do you think your style is evolving? And if it is evolving, how do you retain those qualities from the first 10 years into the shift that you're experiencing now?
I think style can probably loosely be broken into two pillars of like visual style and soul, maybe for lack of a better word. Um, and I think the visual and artistic, tangible style evolves naturally over time, just based on like what I'm into and different tools that come out. It's pretty well dictated by that, and honestly, dictated by my constraints of like I'm never gonna be really good at drawing anatomy of a horse. Like, sorry, but it's always gonna be like weird. So I think that part of my style is evolving as anyone's would, and I don't pay a ton of attention to it. I think the soul and the heart, like my excitement around the work that I'm doing and things like that, is evolving more lately because I'm feeling more comfortable. And this is what all so many greats that I read or listen to will say of like the moment I really started just like indulging in myself is when people really started paying attention. And that's a really scary thing for me because I'm a designer and like I'm supposed to somewhat always be like serving a goal or whatever. But yeah, I think lately I've been a little bit more confident, and this comes again with like the privilege of like like people telling me I'm doing good. So I'm like, okay, I'm allowed to do these risks. And again, I'm not taking the craziest risks, but for instance, right now I'm looking at a piece of lettering that I'm working on my screen, and like it's not good lettering. And like, but it's like I'm like the more I do like my own take on lettering, and like because I put lettering on a pedestal of like I know that like you can really get nerdy about it, and I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that. I'm like gonna fully just do whatever the heck I want, and it feels so much more unique and fresh and inspiring and stuff like that. And so I just want to continue to lean into like letting go of that. And I think that's where like the content world of like YouTube and making my own personal work is a really great way for me to exercise that, because clients only let you like really get weird so much with their work. So, yes, I think I'm still evolving. I certainly think that the emotion part of the evolution is more important right now than like the way it looks or the color palettes, because those I think just like come and go naturally. And I forget the third part of the question. So, there you go.
How do you maintain that style consistency, basically?
It's the less you think about it, the better off you are, kind of thing. And I think you try to, yeah, you just reject it as much as you can, and like try to not look at other designers. Like just try to be influenced by like as wide of a world as you can and things that you're genuinely passionate about. And you'll just steal from all those things. And it's just like a different amalgamation rather than just like an amalgamation from the top page of Dribble. It's an amalgamation from like travel and from different cartoons and TV shows and music and feelings and emotions and like talking about your feelings and all that. Um, so I think like the harder you try, it's really like there's a paradoxical effect to it of like the more you try to create a style, the harder it's going to be. And I know that sounds annoying coming from somebody that apparently does have a style, but I truly genuinely can say I'm like I really don't know. I really just know that I have like a certain type of lens that I see things through, and the more I lean into it, the better off people see, or the better it's received.
So basically, you're saying go out, touch grass, don't think
Uh-huh.
about your style, and
Mhm.
just do what you're doing.
And be patient.
So I think just on the topic of being vulnerable, how did you ever start doing that? Because I would imagine transitioning, because speaking from personal experience, transitioning wasn't the easiest job. And that initial phase of finding clients and really putting yourself out there and showing your true self to people, and not just your audience, but also building a community around it and your network around it, was that the stepping stone into being more vulnerable to the internet?
Have to say the white knighty aspect first because it's true and genuine of like a lot of privilege of like if I were a woman online, it's like it's fucking a lot scarier. If I weren't like a white straight man, like it's there's like a lot of things that I plenty of things I can be picked on for, right? Like just take your pick and happy to receive those critiques. But at the same time, it's like I don't have any like there's no big core shots that anybody could take at me on the internet. And the other thing is like I was raised to have such confidence in like in myself, not like in a bravado sort of way, but just like know that like no, what I'm doing is like I'm doing a good job and like I'm a good person and like I'm not a scum. So those things are important, and but not everyone has those things, and there's ways around it if you do have those things fighting against you, right? And like um and clarifying that like having being a woman isn't a is a negative thing, but it can be a disadvantage to sometimes being able to share yourself vulnerably online and just want to like react to that. But despite hardships or the shitty world that we live in, it's like baby steps. Like that's the thing is like often people are like, I want to make reels, but like how do I like you're like talking to the camera. I'm like, start by not talking to the camera. Like start by doing just a voiceover over your work, or start by doing just your face smiling and waving but not your voice, and start by just like baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. And I have found that generally speaking people are chill and like and so they reward that confidence, and people want to see you, people want to see people, and they like that. And I think also the other big thing is like I had a job in waitering. Like I was a waiter in a restaurant like for like 7 years, and it was like hardcore. And it was like, and like I would do like bartending, and I would like have to speak. And like before that job, I was like, I always like say I like had like my t-shirt in my mouth where I was just always like nervous to speak and stuff like that. And so like travel also like it's just like all of these like life things I think that you don't realize are really valuable and helpful to growing a business or to growing content or being confident on the internet, and therefore the world, frankly, right? Like it's almost more important to be confident on the internet than it is to be like at the grocery store today. Um, and
Yeah.
I think like the more life experience you can have, the better off you'll be with it. And I don't think you have to take a big step. I think they can be absolutely baby micro steps of just like posting a selfie or like posting a story that like it's going to disappear. It doesn't matter. And then continuing to have a life outside of the internet where like if someone does talk shit, and like not that that's the end all be all, but like it's a good example of like a way that you would not want to do that ever again. It's like having friends and loved ones that like can laugh at that with you and be like, oh, that they don't know you, it's not a problem. So yeah, I think baby steps is my big key to it, though.
I relate to that. I think that's how I started too. And I used to hate listening to my own voice. And I think that's one of the
Yeah.
things that people really think about. Like, I hate my voice. This is not how I sound like. And I hate it.
Yes.
But I think that's great advice on how you can get started. And that also kind of transitions with time and experience too, because what you may be scared of 10 years ago may not may have evolved into something else. Like
Mhm.
now it might be public speaking in front of 10,000 people. So the
Mhm.
same fear of putting yourself on the internet for the first time on YouTube or Instagram or whatever XYZ platform is now speaking at max and in front of 10,000 people. And you're like, oh, now I have to share my story here.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's like you may as well get used to being uncomfortable because you're just if you're someone that's driven, you're just going to continue to be uncomfortable no matter what. So it's kind of important just to like probably learn to thrive under those conditions if you can and just like be excited by them because like discomfort is just excitement like wrapped in another flavor or something. I'm sure there's a more eloquent way to put that, but yeah, it's like get used to it because you're going to want to when you get comfortable with that, then you're going to want to do a live stream in front of 10,000 people or you're going to want to go up on stage or whatever. So like hopefully it only continues to get better for you. So get used to it.
hmm. It's like if you're afraid of something or in that moment, if you experience fear, you actually care about it.
Yes.
And if you think of it with that lens, I think that changes a lot of things. And I think of it every time I'm scared of doing something new, and I'm like, yeah, this means I actually care about this, so I'm gonna put my 100% and actually
Mm,
making this work for me.
mm.
And speaking of that, I think this kind of brings me into this mindset of what success looked like to you 10 years ago, and then what does it look like now? How
Mm.
has that evolved over the years?
10 years ago, I hated everything I did a lot more. I struggled at the midpoint of every project where I was like, well, this is fucked. I have to give them their money back. Like, this is not like I couldn't manage to get through a project, or it'd be every 3 projects I'd hit a major roadblock and be like, I'm so screwed. Like, I hate this. I don't know how to use color. I don't know how to, like, whatever it would be. That has gone away. And I didn't think that would have gone away. Um, but yeah, success was basically probably back then just to like be a little bit more confident in the work that I'm doing. And I don't know if I deserved to be confident back then 10 years ago. I think like that lack of confidence drove me to be a little bit more confident today. So I don't know that I would like go back to myself and say like, hey, don't worry about it. I'd be like, no, continue worrying. You're getting better by like hating it. But success was really just like for me to like have, and like I got probably 10 years ago was like I signed the lease to my first studio, and like being able to like work with friends was like a really big deal, and I was like really excited by. And I'm, in a, as I think back, I'm like, a lot of these things are the things I'm doing now, and so like I'm really grateful for that. One thing that I'm excited about right now is just like hiring more help with things and like spreading the joy of having people involved in things. um like full-time hire, not, no, but like just spreading the like the weight, the distribution of the stress, and like being able to share that with people, even like frankly like you kind of saying things about me, like understanding my work pretty well. Like I think you're a very astute person when it comes to understanding people, and I think that's why you're so good at what you do with the interview world. But like, yeah, you're like, I like hearing that because I feel like, okay, we're on a team in a way, which feels selfish, but like, you've connected me with contacts and like all these things. It just feels like I think I would like to maybe distribute the stress of carrying it all on myself outward without it being like, without robbing myself and without robbing clients and stuff of the experience of what I have to offer. But I think, yes, succinctly put, and appreciating the patience while I think through it, I think being able to like distribute some of the stress would be really nice. Not to give other people stress, because I'm learning that like people that like to help, it actually takes
Mm.
stress away from them from being able to help. So um, I think that would be that, because like I don't know. Client, like I don't have like a ton of drive for like certain like there's small things like certain clients I'd want to work with or certain projects and stuff. But to me, I just kind of keep following. The other big success would be like YouTube. I would really like to like really have like a good way of like being able to like release videos that people care about, and also like release like new toys or shirts and stuff like that in a very limited fashion, and be able to
Mm.
have people be really interested in them and engaged. Like that would be like a more micro tangible success, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'd buy that YouTube skull. No, I think that success definition definitely evolves over time. And honestly, I ask this to every guest that I have, and everyone has a very similar take on it at the end of the day, which is like, if I have the freedom of doing whatever I want and still be able to provide for myself and my family and have that joy of waking up every single day and be excited about what I'm creating, that is success to me. And I
Yeah.
feel like that brings in so many different aspects of it when I kind of relate it to micro goals or tangible goals here. Like, oh, yes, I'm good on YouTube. My shop is
Right.
doing well. And like those short term or long term goals all kind of add up to that definition of success. So, speaking of 10 years ago and then now, how do you kind of feel safe enough to raise your rates? And I'm kind of bringing in all different aspects of being a creative here when talking about pricing as well. How do you kind of raise those rates or like say no to some work now?
Life changes, I guess is what I was trying to say. Of like, so circumstances change, and those types of things change. But confidence grows, and so you're able to raise rent, raise rates as rent
And
raises as well.
rents.
As rent raises, we also need to. So there is that natural thing. I think a lot of this conversation does come down to confidence too, which I think is really important. I think and community. So I think probably a more interesting or a different answer from me saying confidence again. Uh, Community, I think, is a huge aspect to growth, especially with money and stuff like that. Being able to talk to friends, being able to like, most people are so much more comfortable talking about money than TV shows make us think, where it's like, oh, it's a taboo subject. But like, no, most people are very comfortable talking with how much money is in their bank account if they like it's really not as stressful as it needs to be. And like, certainly people are comfortable with at least saying like how much they charge for a project, even if not like even more detail. Um, and so I think like community is really important, and being able to have friends and like counterbalances and checks and all that sort of stuff of like, okay, well, how are you feeling? What is going on with that? To me, that's like the way confidence grows from a pricing perspective. And we continue to read books and learn and understand and those types of things, but those are obvious. But I think the more spiritual growth is around community and friendship and stuff like that. And frankly, again, like I just had a conversation with a client this morning around pricing. And actually, I've had two or three the last month or so that have felt different. There seems to be a shift happening for me. And I think the core of it is the more of myself I put out there, the more people are comfortable with talking about pricing. And so like I had an agreement that I came up with like a month ago with a client where we were like in a Google Doc together, like writing the agreement in like pseudo language.
Mm.
And it felt really healthy and good, where we were kind of like, yeah, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Like, these are all the different, like, I need to have rights for this and you can have rights for that. And I'm going to get residuals if we do this. And it was like, this is like, oh my God, this is like an agreement. Like, we're actually agreeing to terms together. And then we buttoned it up into like an actual contract. Um, but just like, yeah, that vulnerability and stuff I think was really good. And then this morning I had another call where it was like same kind of thing, where it was like, hey, we got to talk about pricing, and like, here's some blabbering and here's some blabbering from you. And that's just been a nice thing. I don't think I could do that 5 years ago, to be fair. Um, but again, like the more you grow and the more you talk to different friends and things like that, I think you can continue to like feel more confident to do it and test the waters. And don't be shy. Like, I also, the other big component of this that I get frustrated with is like when people are like, everyone needs to be charging this much or else like the entire industry is going to tank. And like, yeah, great, we, a rising sea lifts all boats or whatever, but like, some people are green and they have to pay rent, and so like they might have to take $500 for a project that should be like 2,000. And like, I think if you're green, then like great, because that gives you the confidence to then do 600 the next time and 700 the next time. I think the goal is we need to all make sure that we're pushing up and toward the right. But I also like, I really don't like the shame thing that happens to like juniors or younger people. That I have a lot of people come to me like, I did this thing and I only got $500. I'm really sorry. And I'm like, don't stop. Like, you don't have to feel bad. Like, be great. That's great. That's amazing. Next time you get 600. Next time you get 700. So again, I think the answers are like baby steps, confidence, and community.
This kind of sums up our conversation too, where every career arc or transition was stemmed in confidence and staying true to who you are, and really believing that even if you're vulnerable on the internet, it's okay.
It's good.
Everything turns out to be in your favor if you're more vulnerable and honest to everyone on the internet. Thank you so much, Kirk, for being here. I'm really excited to dive into showing up intentionally and authentically in our next episode coming up pretty soon. But thanks so much for being here. I love chatting with you and really diving into the deep end of your story and transition. Yeah, we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you, Anika. Thank you for listening. Thank you for having me.